All right, welcome to session two, week two of the Introduction to AutoCAD short course. Last week we went through the user interface of AutoCAD and then we drew a few random lines everywhere and we sort of went through how to select them and deselect them and that sort of thing. So some of the very basics of selecting were to click, let go of your finger, come along, click again, and that grabs a whole lot of stuff. And then and if you wanted to remove some stuff, we use the shift key and click on the thing you want to remove, or the shift key and do a window again, and that'll grab a whole lot. Or if you did or if you wanted to reselect them and you went from right to left, it gives you a green window, and that is whatever it touches, it will select it, rather than having to be wholly inside the window like the blue one does. If you click and hold, it does this as a lasso or lasso, whatever they call it, and just that does it picks it all up like that. I don't use that at all actually. Generally, I just get away with just the window, but you can if you want to customize it a bit. If you go the other way, it gives you a green one, which means if it's just touching, it'll pick it up as well. And the new one I discovered recently is if you space bar, it turns that into spacebar, it just turns it into just lines, and it's whatever the lines touch, it'll grab them. So it's called a fence, actually. It's a fence lasso. So, all right, all good. All right, so last week we did those lines. We showed you to select. For example, if I was to select something like this, to delete it, I'll just press the delete key, or I can just pick the delete up here, or any other command. In fact, copy it, move it, rotate it, whatever you want to do. So that's the pre-selection way of issuing a command. So you pre-select what you want to, and then you do something with them. So it might be copy, rotate. The other way, of course, is to select the command first, then decide what you want to add to the selection, and then the command away goes. All right. And the other way, of course, you can select stuff, right click, and another menu comes up. You can type things in. I can select this. I can type in E for erase, or type in erase. What is the golden rule about when you type something in? What do we have to do if we type something in? Golden rule number one. Whenever you type something in, what do? Enter. Yeah, or spacebar, yeah, which is the same as enter. So if I was to type E for erase here, I have to press spacebar or enter to actually action that. All right. So that's and that's the same thing when if you enter a distance or an angle, you have to press enter after. All right. It's like Excel, something in the cell, you press enter or tab or click somewhere else for it to actually take that number in. All right. Oh, you drawn something. Oh, good. So let's just move on and now. Oh, what have I done here? This is the wrong one. Sorry. Here. So we're looking at this little PDF here, and we started drawing this thing right down the bottom of it. There's three diagrams. We started with this one here, and we didn't draw much. We did it very quickly, in fact, last week, just so we can just draw something. So I'm happy to start this again, just this little bit here, because I didn't do much. I just revised. Does anyone not? Well, from last week, those of you that were here, you might. I'm not sure. Do you have problems with the angles? I'm thinking entering angles. You after doing this, if you've done it, are you more familiar with the angles? If you haven't done it yet, we'll have a go again, and I'll explain it. And you can. There's a little diagram up here. I can't remember what page it was, but it's not too far here. And page 8, it says 10 up the top here, says 8 here. But this little diagram here. So all the angles by default are measured from the 3 o'clock position, and they work anti-clockwise. So 45 will be this way, 90, 135. But I can also enter a negative angle. So I can put in 315 can also be expressed as minus 45. So it's just going clockwise then. Right, so not to say you can't change this, so the 0 says up at the 12 o'clock position. Surveyors work that way, but by default it comes in like this. Right? So when we are drawing any angles, we imagine that, for example, the center of that circle there, if you can always have this in your head sort of thing, this little diagram, and if I was then trying to draw this line here, which I know is 45 degrees from memory, which looks like 45 anyway, and I'm sitting here, I finished this line, I started from over there and I finished here, and I'm sitting there, and now I want to draw this line here. Okay, so imagine that you've got this little circle about that endpoint of that line there, and then try and work out, where your 45 is. So everything is relative to that endpoint now. And as we move along, so you're doing this one here, just imagine this little circle here, and where, so over here 0, up, if I just draw a line so you can see, oops, yeah, up here is about 45, 90. So this over here will be about 135, or 140, 135 is there. So this is a little bit less. Depends what they gave us. I don't know how this was constructed, but just that's how they work. So this angle here, if I just put that on there, it looks like it's about 130. It says. So measure it from a 3 o'clock position. Back in the day when we used to have paper copies and not PDFs, we used to get the students to actually draw a little circle at each one of those intersections in the pencil and just work out where they are in relation to that. So now we can't drag anything like that on them. All right, so I'll just quickly redo this here for the benefit of those that that haven't done it before. The other thing is, those of us that have had to finish here and want to continue on, you can continue on by clicking on the line command, and then just making sure that you've got the object snaps on, and they're down in the status bar down here. All right, so are you familiar with the object snaps at all? Yeah. So they should be on already, or they should be visible. They should be displayed on the status bar. Some of these things I've got here are not displayed. So if yours, and if you move the machine from last week, if you click on the horizontal bars there, it would show you what I've got on. So basically, all of that is what I got on. Especially the very minimum, you got to have this one here, which is the dynamic input. Just leave that on because we need to be able to toggle it on and off, depending if you're putting in an absolute coordinate or just a relative coordinate. And this diagram will show us what they all mean. All right, so that's the dynamic input. That should be on. All right, so down here, make sure that in your object snap, you've got a list midpoint and endpoint on, which is what I've got, intersection, extension, and perpendicular. So that's the ones I use all the time. We can always add more, of course, or and talk about them more as we get to draw something else. For now, we'll keep it simple. Now, we haven't drawn we haven't created a layer to put this in. We just, even though the PDF says it's about layers and coordinates, we omitted the layer bit just for simplicity at this point, but we will talk about layers later. All right, so if you've basically what I've got here, dynamic input, I'm going to turn it off because I'm going to start this again. I'm just going to, in fact, erase what I've done here, like this. And now what I did then, if you haven't noticed, I typed in E and spacebar. Is a different way of what I told you before. What I said before, you could do this and then press E and that will go. But what I just did then, just because of habit, I just went E and then spacebar, which means enter, E for erase, and then I had to select, and I just did a window, but it doesn't automatically delete it if you go and issue the command first, because it just sits there and says, okay, select object, select object, select object. So that's why it's simpler. If you can select first, then issue the command, and off it goes. But the way I did it is a bit backward, but I thought I'd just show you what happens if you issue the command first. It says select objects, and it's one of those other golden rules that are becoming more and more insignificant because we are using this other method now, selecting first. But the other golden rule is when you finish selecting, you need to press enter again, and that's the only way it knows that you've finished your selection, and we'll move on and we'll execute that part of the command. In this instance, that part of the command is to delete everything, and there's nothing more. But if you're using, for example, the copy command, if I issued the copy command first and I did this, right, it says select objects. Okay, so I'll keep selecting, but nothing happens until I press enter. Then it moves on and says, okay, where do you want to copy them from? I'll say, okay, from here. Where do you want to put them? Over here. So you can see some commands have more than one step of a lifespan before they finish. All right. Sometimes we have to finish them ourselves, like the copy one here. It'll go forever stamping around until I press escape. Bit like the line command. L for line, enter. Goes on forever, eh? But if I draw a circle, C for circle, done. Normal finishes. All right, so they're not all the same. All right, so I'm going to start this again as a bit of a revision. So I'll just look at this thing here. Why do I keep pressing that? It's actually PDF. But all right, so let's go here. This one here. So I'm not going to follow there is a step-by-step to begin this, but I'm not going to follow that. And I'm going to mix and match. This is going to be a bit like drawing A and drawing B. So this has got all horizontal mainly lines and vertical. So where there's a horizontal line, I'm going to use this system here, what's called direct distance entry. So you don't actually have to put an angle or a coordinate. You just point that way and off it goes, which is better. All right. So how do we make this thing for a start draw horizontally? Does anyone remember? Or vertically? How do we make it do that? Anyone know? Also snap, yes, which is one of the things down the status bar, which is right here next to my dynamic input. F8, at this point, there's two of them do similar things. The one next to it, this is the right angle thing, is the ortho snap. The other one is the polar tracking. I use the ortho mode on, which is actually the function key 8, F8, if you want to learn something that you can toggle things on and off with. If I keep pressing that button goes on and off. So I know my first line I'm going to draw is going to be horizontal, so I'm going to stick that on, so I'm ready for it. So that's on down there. It's a bit hard to see from back there, but all right. So I'm going to start with that. Just scream out if I lose you or anything. Yeah. Dynamic input. Yeah. So the dynamic input is if you go here, it's up there. It's about the sixth one down from the top. Yeah. Dynamic input. Yeah. That's a good one. The others can wait as such. Yeah. That should be already there. That should be already there for you. It's next to the dynamic input. If you turn that on. Yeah. So when one is on, so when one is on, the other one is off. They don't work together. All right, so that's the one. So now, if we look at we're going to have to download this into a PDF because it's just terrible. All right, so when we look at this thing here, it says to begin your drawing from an absolute coordinate position, 7338. Right, so for us to do that, and especially myself, because I've been drawing stuff and you probably have as well, an absolute coordinate requires that you don't have the dynamic input on. especially if you've been mucking around, because it would not reference it directly from 0, 0, which is the bottom left. It references it from the last point you clicked at. So if the last point was, say, here, it will measure 73 steps to the right, then 38 steps to the up, and then it's going to start the line from there. Whereas I wanted to reference the line from 0, 0. So I'm going to turn off dynamic input because it assumes from the last position. So I don't want that. So I'm going to basically issue the line command now by clicking on the line command on the home tab. And the next thing you do is not to touch your mouse. Next thing you do is to actually put in those numbers, all right? Which is 73, 38. Do not put a full stop, right? Because a lot of people will put a full stop instead of a comma. Doesn't work. So 73, no space bar or anything, just 73, 38. And that will begin from wherever that is. If you zoomed in, it will look a bit different, but I just zoomed in there. Now, zooming in, remember, you want to bring your cursor near the location of where your line is of interest and push your scroller up. That way it remains mainly in the middle. We hold down the middle mouse button to pan. Just hold it down and push, and it can pan. All right. And I'll show you the other one after we finish. It's a zoom extends one, which is double clicking it, but you can't do it when you're in the middle of a command. So that's the three things that middle mouse button does. All right, so we click and we let go of our finger, and then we move the mouse to the right, and it should be horizontal. And then we will just simply type in that distance, which is 250. Let's call it 250 millimeters. It's 250 units. It doesn't actually understand if it's millimeters or feet or what. So it's 250 and press enter. Now, the 250 is appearing at the command line, and I haven't set up your command line to be like mine. It's not docked as such, but that's fine. I will fix it in a minute. So it's 250 comes up on the bottom there. Now, the reason it's coming out down the bottom there, now I didn't click in there. It just goes there. You just type 250. You don't have to go clicking down here to type it, okay? Do not make that mistake. Don't get used to that habit because it's going to slow you down. So 250 and golden rule, enter, because we type something in. Make sure you're pointing to the right. Off we go. Done. So that first line is drawn, okay? So the next thing we're given is that here we've got a 135-degree angle. So we know that this time we're going to do something different. This time we're given an angle and we're given a distance. So now the problem is we've got to do a bit of maths, and you've got to understand a little bit about lines and angles. All right. So a straight line has got how many degrees? I don't know. Go way back, 180 degrees. So if this was continuing through, that makes 180 degrees the whole thing. So we got 135 over here. So the remainder of that would be 180 minus 135. So what would that be? Yeah. So that will be 45 degrees. All right. So we just have to put in. There is a little formula, but we try not to use the formula. But I'll tell you what it is as well. What we want to do now, after we've inputted that first thing in here, first input, and now we're down here, we can turn this on now, this dynamic input. We can turn it on halfway through. And I'm hoping that will come up, but it's not coming up, is it? All right, so it's not coming up. I was hoping to see the heads up display, then it makes life easier, but maybe from here on. So let's go and do the formula anyway. So the formula is always a good backup. The formula is shift key at. All right. Now the first thing we put in, now where's that coming up? I can't even see it anyway. Shift key at. No, there it is. It's come up. Shift key at. Now it's come up. See how it's come up, the heads up, display. I'm not sure if yours do shift key and that sign. So shift key and the number 2 basically. Don't hold it, just shift key, hold the shift key down, and that not working. It's working. You all right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, and then that's come up. Oh, that's gone. Okay. So that's come up. Then he wants a distance. You can see he's got the setup already, like the formula setup. He wants an at, and he wants a distance, and he wants an angle, and then you put the angle, which is 45. So I'm going to put the distance of, what is it, 60? 60. So I'll just type in 60. And then now I should be able to tab, but I won't. I'll just put in shift key and the comma, which is basically the angle symbol, right? And then I'll put in 45, enter. So that should come out like that. Now from here on, we're getting a better heads up display here now after the first one. But we'll just have to go straight up and type in 75. So that's basically the that bit. Everyone okay? We've fallen behind, anyone? I know some of you have drawn it already, but it's also good practice if you want to redo it. Or just listen in. All right, so the next thing is giving us this. Now, it's not giving us a distance, it's just giving us like a height and a width of some sort. You know, it basically is giving us how many steps to go up and how many steps to go across. Now, we have to get used to thinking about not the first number we see, but thinking about which is the first number we need. And here, you know, I deliberately said 60 steps up, but really, we've got to go 50 steps backwards. So that's the x. So here we've got to put in a coordinate for it to work out where it's going, an x and a y coordinate, right? Because we haven't got this system here where they're giving us an angle and a distance of the line. They're only giving us we already got this point here. Now they're giving us the next point up here. And to locate that point, we've got to step 50 steps back this way and 60 steps up. So how do we actually input that in? Anyone know? How do we put in 50 steps back and 60 steps up? It's a coordinate. Yeah. Negative 50. Come on. Yeah. Correct. Yes. Now that was good. Yeah. So basically, the way this works as well, and I'm not sure if it's in here. Oh, we are here. Sorry. There is and also a little coordinate system here, I think. Have you come across it? I have to, otherwise I'll show you in a minute. Just looking for it. No. Okay, it's not in here. Basically, you can imagine here. Let me just go down. You can imagine if you're here. If I start moving my mouse this way, I'm stepping. At this point, I'm looking at the little counter there. I'm stepping 47 steps to the right. All right, so that's the x direction. If I go back, I'm going 38 steps backwards. It doesn't say negative, but I'm going backwards in relation to what? In relation to that point that I was standing on before. I'm not in relation to the 0, down here. Just in relation to that. That's my new origin, my new 0. So every time I stop somewhere, that's my new 0. So relative to where I am now, if I go this way, it's about 60 steps there, 50 steps there. Back here is about there you go, nearly 50 there, 50 steps there. But we don't rely on that. And then we can go up 60. If you go down, if we were to go downwards, that would be negative 60. So positive goes up and to the right, negative goes to the left and down. All right, so in this case, we are going back, so it's to the left, so it's negative 50. And the way we tell it that we're going to give you the y coordinate next, we put a comma between the two numbers. Right? So it'll be minus 50 comma 60, which is, we don't put positive, we just say 60. So all we do here, we don't click, we just type it in. Minus 50 comma 60, enter. And probably that'll be the last time you're ever going to use something like this once we finish this exercise, right? So when you're dealing, it really depends. I would say that only because I don't know what you're going to be using this for, but only because I'm thinking mainly building design stuff. Generally, it's horizontal and stuff. But if you're doing something else with angles, this would be very handy to know. And if you're measuring something and you need to input it, so we're just trying to teach you a bit of everything because we've got a bit of everything in here. Yeah, so we're going to go 80 next, 80 across. So I'm going to go straight across and type in 80. Does anyone know how else I could put this 80 using the coordinate system, for example? If I was, if it was similar to this. I mean, this one here, I went back 50 and up 60. This one here, I'm going across 80 and how much up? Like, no, 50 here. Yeah, but no, that's after this one here. Yeah, I'm going across 80, all right, but I'm not actually going anywhere in the Y. That's how you can get a horizontal line by putting in 80, 0 as your next thing. All right, so what did we do before? We typed in, did I type in minus 50 or just at minus 50? I can't remember what I did before, but it didn't matter. Now, it didn't matter because I had dynamic input on. And remember what I said about dynamic input? It assumes from the last point regardless. Now, if I didn't have dynamic input, I would have to put in at, which means from where I am now, the at sign, right? You can see, if you look at your command line in the bottom, that it's actually put it in for me anyway. So this one here, I could probably just type in, probably by default, I'd put it in anyway, at 80, 0. Right, so, where are we? Anyway, I'll just enter it. And there it went over there. Right, that should be 80, 0, and I can go up 50. Now, you can, if you made a mistake, it didn't work out, or if you just want to undo it to try something different, you can just click down here which says undo, and it'll go back one step, or even two if you want to keep clicking it, but then you're doing more work for yourself. But it's handy if you've noticed a problem a couple lines ago. All right. So now I've undone that, and I'm just going to put it in a different way. I'm just going to type in 80 by just pointing, and there it is. Same thing. All right. I'm going to undo it again, and I'm going to ask you to input it one more time, different way. 3 different ways you can do this. And I'm going to undo this, and I'm going to ask you to tell me how I could put that in, having had a go at just one more, this one here, how I can put it in using the method of a distance, which we've got, the distance is 80, and an angle. How could this be expressed in a distance and angle situation? Like a polar coordinate input, sorry. So, yes, fantastic, excellent, yes. If you remember, I was going to say, if you remember that circle thing, 3 o'clock position, that's where 0 is. We're going towards 0, horizontal. If we're going to go up, well, this is the next example, we'll go, if we're doing the 50 that way, we'll go at 50, angle up is 90, because 0, 90. But we're not going to go and do that because we're just going to do it the quick way, but just pointing up, all right? But just gives you a bit more practice. All right, so yeah, I'll put in at 80, angle 0. There is same thing. Anyway, from now on, I'm just going to go up, typing 50, go quicker. the less than sign. Yeah, yeah. The one with the comma. Yeah. Straight up, I mean 50 or however you want to do the next one. You can put in straight up 50. You can put in at 50 angle 90, or you can put in at we're going 0 in the x, comma 50 in the y. So we'll speed it up a bit. We'll go 180 next. Just going to go straight across 180. And so it's 180. So I just went across 180 after that. So yeah, 50 up, yeah, stopping 50 goes up, then go across to the left, and we'll go 180, and then we're going to have to think about this one, right? So how are we going to do this one? Now this one, what have we got in front of us? What do you think we've got here? What have they given us for this one here? We've got this again. We've got the angle, and we've got the length of the line. So it's not one of these ones where we've got the x and y. The only way we can do this one is by the length of the line and the angle. We don't know what it is to step across a number of steps this way and a number of steps down this way. They haven't given us that. So we haven't got a choice. So we're going to have to do that formula again. So always the distance goes first, 50, right? So I can type in at 50 and then do the angle, which is, what is the angle? Well, it's 135. It says from the 0 position. Imagine your circle is here, 3 o'clock over here to the right, 90 up, 180, 270. We're somewhere between 180 and 270. Ah, thank you. Yes. Or you can use minus 135. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That'd be the easiest way. No maths required. All right. So, yes, minus. So we can go, this distance is 50, so we're going to go, I really started typing it in, but I stopped. So at, oh, what have I done? It's not going to work. Oh, yeah, no, it's died. Not working on. At, here you go, because I flicked over it. No, it's not working. Look, I'm going to cancel it, and I'll show you how to begin it again. All right, because I was flicking around, it got confused. So I'm just going to go line again, and I'll just latch onto the end of that line because I've got my object snap on. Just make sure you got your object snap on, and you can just, if yours is a problem, just latch on there like that. So now I can go and type in. Now, because I've got this heads up thing, I don't have to actually do the at. You can see the first thing it's giving me here is a distance. As I move, I'm restricted to left and right, up and down, right? But I can, it doesn't matter. I can still just type in, just to be confusing, still type in 50, and then I can tab across and put in minus 135. Tab across to the angle. So it's another way of inputting it on a heads-up display. And look at that. What happened then? Did you get that result? If you did it the way I've done it? It went the wrong way, didn't it? It went completely opposite way. So I've had this problem before where it doesn't really, through that heads-up display, it doesn't really understand the negative angles. So we can just undo that, and we know how to do that. No harm done. I'll just take off the ortho, just a bit confusing. I'll just turn it off so we can see when that rubber band. Yeah, well, it should have been there. It's only if you turn it off from here that it wouldn't be there. But for me, because I'm tabbing, I haven't got the two screens, I'm tabbing across to show you other stuff. It gets confused sometimes. I think that's what it is. But for you, I'm not sure if it's doing it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so you've gone past that point, have you? Yeah, you're down there. Okay, so I better hurry up, eh? So we're going to go at 50 and then angle minus 135. In theory, it should work. It may not. I did. So that way it worked. It's just, I suppose if I stuck to using like a positive angle, it should have worked. I'll go down. Now I've got to put my ortho back on because I turned it off for a minute. And I'll go down 35. And we're going to go to the left and type in 110. There it is. And this one here is easy because it's got so I don't have to do any maths. It's basically 35 already from the 3 o'clock position. If your circle is here, 3 o'clock is here, 45 is sort of up there, 90 is up there. So this is just to be less than 45. So that'll be 70 long, it says. I should just try that now. I'm just going to type in using this heads up display 70, if it proves me wrong. Tab across 35. Yeah, it worked. All right, good. And then we go to the left 110. Oh, was it 100? 100, sorry. 100. Enter. Oh, what have I done? Look at this. What happened there, do you think? I said I'm going to the left, and it didn't go to the left. It went straight up. I must have done something. So go to the left. 100. Let's try it again. Handy to know that undo. You don't want to stop your command and undo because it will undo the whole sequence of lines. You just undo that particular segment and go down 130. And then we go across 50. How are we going down there? All right. Carl, you're good? I should pause. So we're going to work through around this way, and I'll show you what happens at the end of this in a minute. Let me just finish off this last couple of little things. So this one here is an angle 155. So all right. So what's one? Is it 25 degrees? 25, 60. Yeah. So that is 180 minus 155. It leaves us 25 in there. So it's at 80 angle 25. All right. So that's about right, maybe. And the next one, we're going to go 53 steps that way, 53 steps down. So that will be at 53 in the X, but down in the Y it will be minus 53. From where we are, relative to that, we're going downwards. Just like that. And then the next one, it says it's 139. In fact, it's not. If you measure it, it's 138 point something, I think. But when you do the dimensions, it will round it up to the nearest millimeter. But that's not what we'll be looking at to check, actually. Really, the way to finish it off is you got three different ways. Right. One way will be to, I'll take off the ortho now, to latch onto the end. The other way is if you haven't stopped halfway like I have, like if I started right from there and work my way all the way around without stopping, see this little thing here says close, an option in the command line. You can just press close and go to the beginning. All right. But if you stop like I have, that's going to go to where I started it from again, and it was somewhere around here, so we'll go up there. All right. So now what you got to think, what's the best way of checking that I'm finishing up where they want me to finish? And yes, easy for me to click here, it'll work. But what I'm really trying to do is actually get it back to a coordinate called 7338. So let's see if I can get it back to that coordinate. Now, how do I do that? If I type in 73,38 now, I'll do that with my dynamic input on. See what we get, eh? 73,38. What do you think is going to happen? We've got 73 steps to the X and 38 up, aren't we? So if I press enter, there we are. See that? We went 73 steps from where I was, and 38 up. Totally the wrong direction. So let me undo that. What I really should have done was just to prove a point that having this dynamic input on is not helping us. So for when you're inputting what's called absolute coordinates, not relative to where we are, which is what we've been inputting right through this, absolute coordinates, which, as I said last week, you probably only use, probably never, unless you're a surveyor. Surveyors use absolute coordinates. We don't usually. But anyway, this is giving us one of those options. So the way to get it is to take off the dynamic input and put in 7338. Now, if I type in 73, 38, should go right where I began from. And that's it. Now, I haven't told you probably how to measure these things and check. I can't remember if I did, but I'll show you again. There's a little measure here. Now, the way to check is not to put a dimension in, unless you need to dimension it. Now, these things here have got dimensions on there, but it's only for you to construct it. It's not for you to actually dimension it. But if you want to check a particular distance, you click the measure button up here, which is actually, if we just click the split button below it, it's got a few different commands. One of them is distance, the other one is radius, angle, whatever. Distance is the one we want, but if you just click it, it will give distance by default. So the distance is like this. If I go there, it latches onto the end of the line, and then to the end of that line there, and it gives me some information down here. Now, if I've got, remember what I said last week, dock your command line, which is this thing here, and give yourself 3 or 4 lines of information so you can read what it says. Otherwise, it disappears. Now, it says here the distance is 138.51, not 139, right? That's an odd one. The rest of them should be exact. So if I measure, because it's just the finishing one, it just closes it. But why does it come up 139? That's the question. Let's see. Now this one here is 250. So this one is exact. Right? I'll tell you why it doesn't come up with 138.5 when you dimension it, because that's what they've done. Because the dimension command itself has built-in settings. And those settings, one of those settings is to round up to the nearest millimeter. Mine being 138.51, it rounded up to 139 when we wouldn't dimension it ourselves using this command here, for example. Sorry, let me go to annotate here, which just gives you more options. And I go to linear. I've got standard. I just put it in. The text might be too small, but oh no. Oh, sorry, we don't want linear. We want angular. Aligned, sorry. Yeah, 138. Well, it's a comma, but it's a point. That's the European point. All right, so it's 138.51. This one has not been customized to be rounded up as they normally would be in an architectural or engineering sense, because we haven't done anything to it. We just got it straight out of the box. So this will give you the truth. This one here was done by customizing it to the nearest millimeter. All right. Okay, so let me just delete that. So I did the distance command. Before, but I didn't actually finish telling you how to read it. So if I click distance and I measure that, it says that I've gone 250. That's the length of the line. It also says that the x direction I went is 250. Now let me measure a different one, an angular one. If I measure this one here, it says that line is 74.9533. Would you believe? But it says here, or it doesn't tell me what it is here, so that's all right. But it does tell me also that I've traveled along the x direction 53 and along the y minus 53. Well, that's funny. That's what I actually inputted to actually get that line. So that's good. So it does verify that. So that's how you read the distance command in your command line. All right. All right. So we're about halfway mark, and it's just as well because we will start something different, I think, after this. So maybe have a little stretch for 10 minutes. Grab yourself either a paid coffee or a vending machine thing or something, or a stretch, go to the toilets or whatever. All right.